Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you of a truth so powerful it can carry you through the storms of life. God sees your struggle. He knows you're tired and He hears your heart. You may feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. The nights seem long and the days feel like an endless fight. But hear me today, God's eyes are on you. The Bible tells us in Psalms 34:15, the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous and His ears are attentive to their cry. He is not distant. He is not unaware. He sees every tear you've shed in secret and hears the prayers you can't even form into words. Your struggles are not a punishment, they are a process. Just as gold is refined in fire, God allows challenges not to destroy you, but to prepare you. The weight you're carrying today is strengthening your spiritual muscles for the greater assignment ahead. You see, when God prepares you for purpose, He doesn't shield you from pain. Instead, He uses it as a tool to sharpen your character, deepen your faith, and increase your capacity to handle the blessings to come. God's omniscience is one of the most profound truths about His nature. It is a source of immense comfort and assurance to know that the Creator of the universe sees and understands everything about His creation, down to the smallest detail. This truth is particularly comforting when we find ourselves in seasons of struggle and weariness, where it feels like no one truly understands the depth of our pain. The very essence of God's omniscience is His ability to know everything past, present, and future about each of us, not in a detached or indifferent manner, but with deep compassion and love. Imagine the weight of life's burdens pressing down on you. You feel unseen, unheard, and misunderstood. Yet, in the middle of this overwhelming sense of isolation, the Bible reminds us that God sees you completely. In Psalm 139, David poetically captures this truth, declaring, "O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought. Afar off, these words are a reminder that there is no moment of our lives hidden from God's gaze. He knows when we rise, when we fall, when we laugh, and when we cry. Every fleeting thought, every whispered prayer, every silent tear is seen and understood by Him. But it is not just that God knows all things, it is that He knows them with compassion. His knowledge is not cold or clinical, it is deeply personal and tender. He does not merely observe your pain, He feels it with you. The Bible tells us in Hebrews 4:15 that we have a high priest in Jesus who is able to empathize with our weaknesses because He has walked the same road of suffering. This is a profound truth. God is not a distant observer, but an active participant in your journey. He knows the unique struggles you face, the fears that keep you awake at night, and the weight of your burdens that sometimes make it hard to even take the next step. God's compassion is intertwined with His omniscience. Because He knows everything about you, He also knows exactly what you need. There is a beautiful passage in Matthew 6 where Jesus reminds His followers not to worry about their daily needs, saying, "Your heavenly Father knows that you need them." This knowledge extends beyond physical needs. God knows the emotional and spiritual support you require. He knows when you need comfort, when you need encouragement, and when you need strength to keep moving forward. He is the God who provides, not just because He can, but because He deeply cares. Even in moments when it feels like your cries for help are met with silence, God's omniscience assures us that He has not turned away. Often we interpret God's delay as His absence, but His knowledge operates on a level far beyond our understanding. Isaiah 55:9 reminds us, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." God's timing, though it may seem mysterious, is always perfect. He sees the end from the beginning, orchestrating events in a way that will bring about the best outcome for your life. Perhaps one of the most comforting aspects of God's omniscience is that it leaves no room for misunderstanding. In human relationships, there is always the potential for miscommunication or judgment. People may see only the surface of your struggles and fail to grasp the depth of what you're going through. But God sees it all. He understands not only what you are going through, but also why you are going through it. He sees the battles you fight in secret, the efforts you make to hold on to faith, and the moments when you feel like giving up. He knows your story better than anyone else. And because of this, His compassion is perfectly tailored to your needs. Moreover, God's omniscience assures us that we are never forgotten. In a world that often makes us feel insignificant, where our struggles can be easily overlooked or dismissed, God declares the opposite. Isaiah 49:16 says, "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands." This vivid imagery illustrates just how intimately God knows and remembers us. He does not lose track of us in the vastness of his creation. Instead, he holds us close, fully aware of every detail of our lives. It is also worth noting that God's knowledge of us is not limited to our present circumstances. He sees beyond our pain and weariness, knowing the plans he has for us. Jeremiah 29:11 famously reminds us, "For I know the plans I have for you," declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. God's compassion is rooted in this divine foresight. He understands that the struggles we face today are shaping us for the purpose he has prepared for us tomorrow. He knows how every trial will ultimately work together for our good, even when we cannot see it ourselves. In conclusion, God's omniscience is not just a theological concept, it is a lifeline for those who are weary and burdened. To know that the Creator sees you, understands you, and cares for you with perfect compassion is a truth that can sustain you through the darkest valleys. You are not invisible to God. Your struggles are not insignificant to him. He sees, he knows, and he cares deeply. Let this knowledge fill your heart with hope and your spirit with strength as you trust in the one who knows you fully and loves you completely. Struggles are an inescapable part of life, and while they often feel painful and overwhelming, they play a critical role in our growth and transformation. Every challenge we face has the potential to shape us, refine us, and prepare us for greater things. Yet it is not always easy to embrace struggles when we are in the midst of them. We often wonder why difficulties arise, questioning if they are necessary or if they have any purpose. But the truth is, struggles are not meant to destroy us, they are designed to build us. They are the tools God uses to mold us into the individuals we were created to be. One of the most profound lessons about struggles is that they reveal our true character. When life is easy, it is simple to appear strong, faithful, and patient. However, it is in the fire of adversity that our true nature is tested. Just as gold is refined by fire to remove impurities, struggles expose the areas of our lives that need growth and purification. They force us to confront weaknesses we might otherwise ignore, such as fear, pride, or self-reliance. It is through these challenges that we are given the opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more humble. Struggles also teach us resilience. Each difficulty we face is an invitation to persevere and to trust that we can endure more than we think. Life's challenges often push us beyond what we believe we are capable of handling, stretching us in ways that feel uncomfortable or even unbearable. Yet, it is precisely this stretching that prepares us for greater responsibilities and opportunities. Just as a tree's roots grow deeper in response to strong winds, our struggles help us develop the strength and endurance needed to stand firm in the face of life's storms. In addition, struggles deepen our faith. When we encounter difficulties, we are often forced to rely on God in ways we never have before. It is easy to trust him when everything is going smoothly, but true faith is developed in the valleys, not on the mountaintops. Struggles strip away our illusions of control and remind us that we are dependent on God's guidance and strength. They bring us to our knees, not in defeat, but in surrender, allowing us to experience his presence and power in ways we could not have otherwise. As the Apostle Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Struggles reveal our weakness, but they also showcase God's strength. Another key aspect of struggles is their ability to foster empathy and compassion. When we go through hardships, we gain a deeper understanding of the pain and challenges others face. This newfound empathy allows us to connect with others on a more profound level, offering support, encouragement, and understanding. Struggles teach us that we are not alone in our difficulties and that sharing our experiences can be a source of healing for ourselves and for others. This sense of shared humanity is a reminder that even in our pain, we can find purpose by helping those who are also walking through difficult seasons. Moreover, struggles clarify our priorities. When we are confronted with challenges, we are often forced to reevaluate what truly matters in our lives. The things we once thought were important, such as material possessions, status, or the approval of others, tend to lose their significance when we face adversity. Struggles help us focus on what is lasting and meaningful, such as our faith, relationships, and inner growth. They remind us that life is not about avoiding pain, but about finding purpose and meaning in the midst of it. It is also important to recognize that struggles prepare us for future success. Many of the greatest achievements in life are born out of adversity. The struggles we face today equip us with the skills, strength, and perspective needed to overcome challenges in the future. They teach us to adapt, to innovate, and to persevere. In this way, struggles are not roadblocks, but stepping stones that lead us closer to our destiny. They remind us that success is not simply about the destination, but about the journey and the person we become along the way. Furthermore, struggles remind us of our dependence on community. While they often feel isolating, struggles have a way of drawing us closer to others. They teach us the importance of seeking help, leaning on loved ones, and building a support network. They also remind us that we were not created to face life's challenges alone. As the Bible says in Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Through struggles, we learn the value of vulnerability and the strength that comes from walking through difficulties with others by our side. Finally, struggles give us a testimony. Every challenge we overcome becomes a part of our story, a testament to God's faithfulness and our perseverance. These stories have the power to inspire and encourage others who are facing similar trials. They serve as a reminder that while struggles may be painful, they are never without purpose. They are a vital part of the process that shapes us into who we are meant to be. In the end, struggles are not something to fear or avoid, but something to embrace as part of the journey. They are evidence that we are alive, growing, and being prepared for something greater. While they may bring discomfort and pain, they also bring transformation and strength. They remind us that growth is not easy, but it is always worth it. So when struggles come, let us face them with courage, trusting that they are refining us for a higher purpose and drawing us closer to the person God created us to be. Divine timing is one of the most powerful and reassuring principles we can embrace in our lives. It is the understanding that God orchestrates every moment, every event, and every opportunity with perfect precision and purpose. While human nature often compels us to rush, to push, and to strive for control over our lives, divine timing reminds us that there is a higher order, one governed by the wisdom and foresight of an all-knowing Creator. This truth challenges us to trust in a process that is often beyond our comprehension, yet it brings a profound sense of peace and assurance when we align our hearts with it. Life often feels like a race against time. We have dreams, goals, and aspirations, and the world constantly pressures us to achieve them on a rigid timeline. The clock seems to tick louder with every passing year, reminding us of what we haven't accomplished, what hasn't come to fruition, and what feels delayed. In these moments, it's easy to feel disheartened or even forgotten, as if our prayers have been overlooked or our efforts have been in vain. But divine timing reassures us that delays are not denials. What seems like a pause or a setback is often God's way of preparing us for something greater than we could have imagined. One of the greatest challenges of trusting divine timing is surrendering our own sense of control. We often have a vision of how our lives should unfold, complete with deadlines and milestones. When things don't go according to our plan, frustration and doubt creep in. But God, in His infinite wisdom, sees the bigger picture. He knows what we need and when we need it. What we perceive as delays may be His way of protecting us from stepping into something we're not ready for, or shielding us from situations that are not aligned with His purpose for our lives. Consider the analogy of planting seeds. When a farmer sows seeds into the ground, they do not sprout and bear fruit overnight. There is a process of growth that occurs beneath the surface, hidden from sight. The seeds must be nurtured with water, sunlight, and time. Similarly, in life, there are seasons when our efforts seem to yield no visible results. But in those unseen moments, God is working behind the scenes, nurturing our growth, refining our character, and preparing the circumstances for His perfect plan to unfold. Just as the farmer cannot rush the harvest, we cannot rush God's timing. The fruit will come in its season. Divine timing also teaches us patience and trust. Patience is not merely the ability to wait, but the ability to remain hopeful and faithful while waiting. It is a reflection of our trust in God's promises and His character. Isaiah 40:31 reminds us, but those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Waiting on God is not passive. It is an active expression of faith. It is a declaration that we believe in His goodness and His ability to fulfill what He has promised. One of the most profound aspects of divine timing is that it often brings blessings in ways we least expect. We may pray for a specific outcome or envision a certain path, but God's answers often exceed our expectations. Ephesians 3:20 declares that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think. His timing is not limited by our understanding or constrained by our desires. When we look back on moments when we trusted His timing, we often realize that His plan was far better than anything we could have devised on our own. Divine timing also operates in seasons. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. Just as nature operates in cycles of growth, rest, and renewal, our lives follow a similar pattern. There are seasons of planting, seasons of waiting, and seasons of reaping. Each season serves a purpose in God's greater plan. The waiting season, though often the most challenging, is where we grow the most. It is where our faith is stretched, our patience is tested, and our character is refined. These seasons prepare us to steward the blessings and responsibilities that God will entrust to us in due time. Furthermore, divine timing reminds us that we are not alone in our journey. While we wait, God is not distant or indifferent. He walks with us, providing strength, guidance, and encouragement. He hears every prayer, sees every tear, and understands every longing of our hearts. His timing is a reflection of His deep love for us, ensuring that we receive what we need at the right moment, not a moment too soon or too late. As we embrace divine timing, we also learn to release the burden of comparison. In a world that constantly showcases the achievements of others, it is easy to feel inadequate or behind. But God's timing for each of us is unique. The path He has designed for one person is not the same as the path He has designed for another. Comparing our journey to someone else's only distracts us from the beauty of what God is doing in our own lives. Trusting His timing allows us to celebrate the successes of others while remaining confident that our own season of fulfillment will come. In conclusion, divine timing is a profound reminder that our lives are held in the hands of a loving and sovereign God. It calls us to release our own agendas, to trust in His perfect plan, and to find peace in the knowledge that He is always working for our good. Though the waiting may be difficult, it is in these moments that our faith is strengthened, our character is shaped, and our trust in God is deepened. When we align ourselves with His timing, we discover that everything unfolds not just at the right time, but in the best way possible, bringing glory to God and fulfillment to our lives. God's promises of rest and renewal stand as a cornerstone of hope and strength for those who feel weary and burdened by the challenges of life. In a world that often demands more than we feel capable of giving, where stress, anxiety, and fatigue seem like constant companions, these promises are a reminder of God's love and care for His people. They reveal a God who not only understands our struggles, but who actively invites us to find solace, restoration, and peace in His presence. The human experience is marked by seasons of exhaustion, times when the weight of responsibilities, trials, and disappointments can feel overwhelming. In these moments, it is easy to feel as though we are walking alone, with no end to the demands placed upon us. Yet God, in His infinite compassion, extends an invitation to lay down these burdens. Jesus' words in Matthew 11:28-30 echo this invitation, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." These verses encapsulate the heart of God's promise, a divine rest that goes beyond physical relief to touch the very core of our being. Rest, as God defines it, is not merely the absence of activity, but the presence of peace. It is a state of inner calm and trust that comes from surrendering our struggles to Him. While the world often equates rest with escapism or temporary distractions, God offers something far deeper and more lasting. His rest is restorative, renewing our strength and equipping us to face life's challenges with resilience and hope. This rest is not dependent on circumstances, but is rooted in His unchanging nature and His faithfulness to fulfill His promises. One of the most profound aspects of God's promise of rest is that it is available to everyone. There is no prerequisite of perfection, no need to have it all together before approaching Him. Whether we are battling external trials or internal conflicts, God's rest is extended to all who are willing to come to Him. It is an open invitation to exchange our striving for His sufficiency, our anxiety for His assurance, and our weariness for His strength. This act of coming to Him requires humility, a recognition that we cannot carry the burdens of life on our own, and faith in His ability to provide what we need. In addition to rest, God promises renewal, a fresh infusion of strength, hope, and purpose. Renewal is not simply about recovering what has been lost, but about stepping into something greater, being made new from the inside out. Isaiah 40:31 captures this beautifully. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. This verse paints a picture of divine empowerment, where human limitations are overcome by God's limitless power. Renewal is not about avoiding fatigue or hardships. It is about being sustained and uplifted in the midst of them. The process of renewal often begins in the quiet moments spent in God's presence. In Psalm 23, David describes the Lord as a shepherd who leads his people beside still waters and restores their souls. These still waters represent a place of peace and reflection, a sanctuary where we can hear God's voice and be reminded of His promises. In these moments of communion with Him, we are refreshed not only physically, but spiritually and emotionally. Renewal comes when we prioritize time with God, seeking His guidance and allowing His word to speak life into our hearts. God's promise of renewal also encompasses hope for the future. When life feels stagnant or when circumstances seem unchanging, it is easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. But God assures us that He is always at work, even in the waiting. Lamentations 3:22-23 reminds us, because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Each day is an opportunity for a fresh start, a reminder that God's mercy and grace are unending. Renewal is not a one-time event, but a continual process as we walk in step with Him. Moreover, God's promises of rest and renewal are a reflection of His deep understanding of our needs. He knows that life's demands can drain us, leaving us feeling empty and depleted. In His wisdom, He provides exactly what we require to be restored: strength for our bodies, peace for our minds, and joy for our souls. He is not a distant observer, but an active participant in our renewal, walking alongside us, carrying our burdens, and pouring His love into our lives. These promises also remind us of the importance of trust. Resting in God requires letting go of our need to control every outcome and believing that He is in control. Renewal requires trusting that He can bring beauty from ashes and strength from weakness. This trust is not always easy, especially when life feels uncertain or overwhelming, but it is the foundation of experiencing the fullness of His promises. Ultimately, God's promises of rest and renewal point us to a deeper relationship with Him. They invite us to move beyond a surface-level faith and to depend on Him fully, recognizing that He is our source of strength and peace. In Him, we find rest for our weary souls and the assurance that no matter how difficult life may seem, He is faithful to restore and renew us. Through His promises, we are reminded that we are never alone, that He sees our struggles, and that His grace is always sufficient. Prayer is the purest and most profound expression of the human heart's connection to the divine. It is not merely a ritual or a religious obligation. It is the outcry of the soul, reaching out to God in moments of joy, pain, gratitude, and need. Prayer transcends language, culture, and circumstance, providing a direct line of communication between humanity and its Creator. It is in prayer that we pour out the deepest desires, fears, and longings of our hearts, trusting that God not only hears but understands and cares. At its core, prayer is an act of vulnerability. When we pray, we lay bare our hearts before God, exposing our weaknesses, our uncertainties, and our need for His guidance. It is a moment of surrender, acknowledging that we cannot navigate life's challenges on our own. Prayer is not about presenting a polished version of ourselves, rather. It is about bringing our authentic selves, broken, flawed, and desperate, into the presence of a loving Father who sees us as we are and still chooses to embrace us. The heart's outcry in prayer often arises from the depths of struggle. In times of hardship, when words fail and emotions overwhelm, prayer becomes a lifeline. It is in these moments that our hearts cry out to God with unspoken groans, trusting that He understands even when we cannot articulate our feelings. Romans 8:26 reminds us, in the same way the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit Himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. This verse is a powerful assurance that even when our prayers are fragmented or silent, God hears the cries of our hearts and responds with compassion. Prayer is also an act of faith. It requires believing that God is present, that He listens, and that He cares about the details of our lives. It is an acknowledgement that we are not alone in our struggles, that there is a higher power working on our behalf. This faith does not depend on immediate answers or visible outcomes, but rests in the confidence that God's timing and ways are perfect. The act of praying itself is a declaration of trust, a way of saying, Lord, I may not understand what is happening, but I trust You to lead me through it. One of the most beautiful aspects of prayer is its simplicity. It does not require eloquent words, rehearsed phrases, or specific rituals. It is the unfiltered language of the heart, spoken in honesty and sincerity. The Bible is filled with examples of individuals whose heartfelt prayers moved the hand of God. Hannah crying out for a child, David pouring out his anguish in the Psalms, and Jesus Himself praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. Each of these prayers was raw and authentic, reflecting the depth of human emotion and the power of a heart laid bare before God. Prayer is not only a means of seeking help, but also a way of cultivating intimacy with God. It is in prayer that we draw closer to Him, learning to recognize His voice and aligning our hearts with His will. Prayer transforms us, shifting our perspective from self-reliance to God-dependence. It is in these moments of connection that we experience His peace, a peace that surpasses all understanding and guards our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus, as described in Philippians 4:6-7. Through prayer, we also express gratitude and worship. It is not only about asking for what we need, but also about recognizing and thanking God for His faithfulness and provision. Gratitude in prayer shifts our focus from what we lack to what we have, from our problems to His promises. Worship in prayer magnifies God's greatness, reminding us of His sovereignty and power. This act of lifting our hearts in praise strengthens our faith and fills us with hope, even in the face of uncertainty. The heart's outcry in prayer is also a reflection of our humanity. It reminds us that we are finite beings in need of an infinite God. It is in prayer that we confront our limitations and embrace His limitless grace. This is why prayer is often accompanied by tears, not as a sign of weakness, but as an expression of dependence and surrender. These tears are precious to God, who promises to collect them and turn them into testimonies of His goodness and faithfulness. Prayer is not always answered in the way we expect, but it is always heard. God's responses may come in the form of provision, peace, or the strength to endure. Sometimes the answer is a change in our circumstances, other times it is a change in our perspective. Regardless of the outcome, prayer assures us that we are not abandoned or forgotten. It is a reminder that we are held in the hands of a loving Father who works all things together for our good. In the end, prayer is the heart's outcry because it reflects the deepest longing of the soul to be seen, heard, and known by God. It is a sacred dialogue that bridges the gap between heaven and earth, a space where our humanity meets His divinity. Whether whispered in quiet moments or shouted in desperation, prayer is a powerful expression of faith and dependence on the one who knows our hearts better than we know ourselves. Through prayer, we find not only answers, but the assurance of God's presence, His love, and His unending grace. Faith through fatigue is one of the most profound demonstrations of trust in God. It is the ability to hold on to hope, belief, and perseverance, even when the weight of life feels unbearable and exhaustion seems insurmountable. Fatigue comes in many forms: physical tiredness, emotional depletion, spiritual weariness, but faith is what carries us through when everything else in us wants to give up. It is in these moments of weakness that faith becomes the anchor of the soul, grounding us in the promises of God and reminding us that His strength is made perfect in our weakness. Life often brings seasons where our efforts seem futile, our prayers feel unanswered, and our hearts grow heavy with the burden of waiting or enduring. Fatigue can creep in quietly through the slow grind of daily challenges, or it can hit us suddenly through loss, disappointment, or hardship. Regardless of how it manifests, fatigue tests the resilience of our faith. It questions our trust in God's plan and timing, pushing us to the brink of despair. Yet it is precisely in these moments that faith takes on its greatest significance, not as a feeling of certainty, but as a decision to trust God, even when circumstances offer no visible reason to do so. Faith through fatigue does not mean denying the reality of exhaustion or pretending that everything is fine. Instead, it is about acknowledging our weariness and bringing it before God. Scripture invites us to do this repeatedly. Psalm 61:2 cries out, "From the end of the earth I will cry to you. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I." This verse reminds us that God is our refuge in times of fatigue, the unshakable foundation upon which we can stand when everything else feels unstable. It is in His presence that we find the rest and renewal our souls so desperately need. Fatigue has a way of narrowing our vision, making it difficult to see beyond our immediate struggles. It can cloud our perspective, leading us to focus on our limitations rather than God's limitless power. Faith, however, shifts our gaze upward. It reminds us that we are not walking through our difficulties alone. Isaiah 40:29-31 provides a powerful promise. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. This renewal of strength does not come from within ourselves, but from God's abundant grace and provision. Faith through fatigue also involves a willingness to let go of the illusion of self-sufficiency. Our culture often glorifies independence and self-reliance, but the truth is we were never meant to carry the burdens of life on our own. Fatigue is a humbling reminder of our need for God. It is an invitation to surrender our striving and to rest in His sufficiency. Jesus Himself extends this invitation in Matthew 11:28-30, saying, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." These words are a lifeline for the weary, assuring us that we can exchange our burdens for His peace. One of the most powerful aspects of faith through fatigue is its ability to transform our perspective. While fatigue tempts us to see only the obstacles in front of us, faith enables us to see the purpose behind the pain. It reminds us that God often uses seasons of weariness to teach us dependence, patience, and perseverance. James 1:2-4 encourages us, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Fatigue, as difficult as it is, can become a tool for growth and refinement when viewed through the lens of faith. Moreover, faith through fatigue is deeply connected to community. When we are weary, it can be tempting to isolate ourselves, believing that no one can understand what we are going through. However, God often uses others to strengthen and encourage us. Galatians 6:2 exhorts us to carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Sharing our struggles with trusted friends, mentors, or spiritual leaders allows us to experience the tangible support of God's love through His people. It reminds us that we are not alone, even when our fatigue feels overwhelming. Ultimately, faith through fatigue is about clinging to the promises of God, even when they seem distant or delayed. It is about believing that His grace is sufficient, His strength is enough, and His timing is perfect. It is a journey of trust, where we learn to rest in His presence and to draw from His endless reserves of peace and power. Fatigue may test our endurance, but it cannot extinguish the hope that faith provides, a hope that assures us that God sees our struggles, knows our limits, and is faithful to sustain us through every trial. Faith does not eliminate fatigue, but it gives us the courage to press on, knowing that we are upheld by the one who never grows weary and who promises to renew our strength.